What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/ProRevenge. Alright, this story's called Trash Your Own Manager and Department? You get to do a presentation. True story, names changed, years ago, yada yada yada. Chad was an engineer with a planning and support department for a portion of his company's infrastructure that impacted virtually every other part of the company. Unfortunately, Chad was a real booty hole. During less than a year with the company, he had thoroughly trashed everyone in his department to anyone who would listen. He talked about their incompetence, their screw-ups, which were generally minor, and most importantly, their failure to properly support the very mission-critical infrastructure they were responsible for. Every hiccup that occurred, however minor, was used as ammunition. What Chad told everyone who would listen eventually made it up to managers and directors throughout the company. That wasn't enough though. Chad made the mistake of trashing his own director, who is also his manager. Over the next few months, there was no one even remotely involved with this department who didn't know what Chad was doing, including that manager. Chad's manager and director was Tim, a pretty crappy manager by most measures. He paid about 40% less than the industry average and had a staff of B and C players because of it, but he nevertheless expected absolute dedication from the staff. If he could have had them wash his car and pick up his dry cleaning, those things would have been added to their job descriptions. Tim was also pretty poor when it came to understanding what his own staff did and routinely made things up about their work while talking to other people. Everyone involved knew he was full of crap because what he said made no sense at all. Most rolled their eyes, but people also knew that Tim was a force to be reckoned with. Despite his shortcomings as a manager, the one place Tim excelled at was corporate politics. He was able to consistently come through failures without a scratch when those failures would have sidelined anyone else. Tim would deftly play opponents off one another, then stand back and watch the fireworks. He had been at it for years and seemed to have a Teflon coating. Crap that stuck to everyone around him would slide right off. Tim, of course, knew exactly what Chad had been saying. Eventually, Chad's trashing of his own department became so severe and their reputation so tarnished that a large directors meeting was called to discuss the situation. The other department directors were out for blood. Enter Tim's ProRevenge. Tim asked Chad, the very person responsible for the company gossip that resulted in the high-level meeting, with the job of putting together and presenting a formal defense against his own gossip. Chad had to spend the next couple of weeks creating a formal presentation and repeatedly submitting it to Tim for approval. The meeting rolled around and Chad was forced to stand up in front of a large group of company directors and managers and formally defend his own manager and department. Everyone at the meeting knew they were only there because of what Chad had been saying, and they sat back and watched him tear himself apart and prove the things he himself had been telling everyone were flat-out lies. Of course, Tim and his department came through completely unscathed, but Chad was thoroughly discredited throughout the company and knew it. He left that company for another within 6 months of that meeting, and last was heard bad-mouthing everyone involved in his new company. Damn, the poo talker that just cannot be stopped. That's funny. Creative. Alright, this story's called Besting a Travel Insurer. In 2013, my dad passed away while my brother and I were on our own independent international adventures. I was in Spain and my brother was in Canada, and we needed to get back to Australia. My travel insurance was dodgy, but eventually paid out after a few complaints, which is pretty standard practice. My brother tried to claim $9,000. He could only get one emergency seat on a bunch of connecting flights, and with that, and his flight back after the funeral, etc., and other cancellations, it all added up. Shock, horror, his claim was rejected. Back then, there wasn't an industry body that dealt with travel insurance companies, or if there was, We had no idea what it was. So my brother went through the usual hurdles involved with the appeals and complaints process. Eventually, they told him that his claim for $9,326 was rejected, and their determination was final. So, back then, companies didn't really have Twitter handles, especially not insurance companies. So my bro, Ever the Troll, created a Twitter handle in this insurance company's name, complete with their official logo. He quickly set about gaining thousands of followers and legitimately began answering their questions with truthful, albeit quite negative responses. Things like, "My daughter and I want to travel to Paris. What insurance cover would you recommend?" We would recommend you take the premium for our comprehensive cover and burn it. We don't like to pay out on any insurable event because it upsets our shareholders. Have fun in Paris, etc., etc. The insurance company caught wind of this and sent him a cease and desist letter. My brother counteroffered with a contract for the company to purchase the Twitter account and 2,500 potential customers for the very reasonable price of $9,326. They agreed. That's pretty funny. Why not just, I know it's probably out of pettiness, but like, man, you could have profited. Go for the even 10K. But then again, maybe there's the potential for them to recognize the 9326, but I doubt it. Anyway, cool guy, bro. Alright, this story's called Landlord Thinks I Owe 8 Months of Rent. Didn't know I knew tenant laws. Okay, not sure this goes here, but here it goes. Not sure it goes here, but here it goes. Funny. This took place during the middle of 2018. Me, my wife, and 3 kids were looking for a new place to rent because our current renter was selling and had given us a 60-day notice to move. During this time, my wife's mother had a friend, let's call him Sam. Sam had a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house that he was in the middle of remodeling to get ready to sell. Because of this, certain parts of the house, like some of the walls, weren't fully painted and some of the floors were old. At the current time, my family really needed a place to stay, and our budget wouldn't allow us to rent any places over $1,000 a month. Keep in mind, I am a disabled veteran and have a lot of time to sit and research things when I need to. First part, signing the lease and getting the keys. During the lease signing, we went over to the house for Sam to point out all the things that were being worked and what things weren't complete when we were moving in. For example, the kitchen floor was being replaced. The kitchen counter, carpet was being added throughout the whole house, currently all wood floors. When we got there, we pointed out that there was still some trash all over the floor and bug traps all over the ground. He assured us that it would be cleaned before we moved in, so we hand over our deposit and sign the lease for $1,000 a month. He says that he is going on vacation out of state and won't be back for 6 months, but the contractors will be stopping by to work on the house. He leaves me a list of the work that is going to be done, and then we wait. 3 days later, we are given the go-ahead that we are able to move in and that he will be back in 6 months. That's a long-ass vacation. We arrive at the house to find his 2 cars and motorcycle in the driveway where nowhere but the street for us to park. This becomes very important later in court. The house is still just as dirty as the day we signed the lease, but with us really needing a place to stay, me and my wife just take pictures and note everything wrong and get to cleaning. Now, remember, this was a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. However, the owner left so much stuff in the house that the 4th bedroom was filled from wall to wall with junk. We decided to just close that door and not use the room. Keep in mind that because we didn't have access to the room because of the owner landlord, we were allowed to deduct that room from the rent. This deduction of rent becomes a pattern soon, living there. Now, we lived there a total of 9 months. During the first 6 months, we tried to get a hold of the landlord by phone with a way to pay rent, but we never got a reply from him after the day we got the keys. So everything that went wrong, we just kept track of. Place had bugs, nails sticking out of the floors, and many other hazards. Finally, on the 7th month, Sam returns from his vacation out of state and retrieves one of the cars in the driveway. Tells us he's sorry for not responding and tells us we will figure out the rent and fixing my issues over the next last week. On month 8, I still haven't paid him anything, as I sent him a letter stating that I would be withholding rent until the safety issues with the house are fixed. Where we live, this is legal. During this time, instead of just fixing the issues and then getting rent from me, we are served with an eviction notice. Keep in mind, we have kept record of everything wrong with this house, including everything to code. Time in court. First red flag in the eviction is the copy of the lease that was attached. It was an altered copy of the original I still had, so the documents didn't even match. So let's do a little math each month. I withheld rent. I gave a detailed invoice of all the charges I'm reducing the rent by. I send all of this in the return on the eviction, and guess who shows up to the house 5 days before court? You bet it's Sam. He starts yelling at the front door, telling me to give him my debit card so that he can go get my rent out right now. I calmly tell him that even though he is the owner or landlord, that under the current laws, he must give me a 24-hour notice before being on the property unless it is an emergency. I call the cops so that I can document that he showed up and tried to scare me into giving him money on the spot. 5 days later, we show up at court and his lawyer walks over to me and presents me with a deal. He tells me that his client, Sam, would like to just have me move out in 2 weeks and call the debt even. I tell him, no, thank you, and we can talk about it with the judge. I present everything on my part, hundreds of photos and invoices from each month about my rent reduction, plus all the safety violations. 1. Room no access, $250 a month times 9 months. 2. Work cleaning and taking care of pool, was in lease to have pool guy, never showed, $100 a month times 9 months. 3. Lawn care, also in lease to be provided, $50 a month times 9 months. 4. Storage for 1 motorcycle, $25 a day for 9 months. 5. Storage for 1 car, $55 a day for 9 months. 6. Storage for 1 car, $55 a day times 7 months. He picked this one up after vacation. Safety violations. No carbon dioxide detector in the house, no working smoke alarms, all windows are supposed to have screens, most were broken or missing. Because of pool and no fence around it, back door needed an alarm to beep when open, county safety code. Exposed wires on most electric outlets, ceiling fans not installed but wires just exposed, improper foundation for rear stairs leading out back door, no license for enclosed backyard room, had a 30 by 20 foot area off back door which was enclosed by a screened area. County required a license for anything that was attached to the house. Also, the piled up junk in the 4th bedroom was a fire hazard. Now, I picked the rate per day to store the vehicles at the house because legally I could have had them towed off the property even though they are the owners. This is the rate the impound lot would have charged per day the vehicle was in lot. This added up to a total invoice of $36,750 minus the $9,000 we owed for rent, leaving $27,750 owed. After hearing both sides, the judge ruled in my favor, giving my landlord 3 options. He could pay me $9,999 max, allowed in small claims court, here, and I would have 7 days to be off the property. 2, he could give me a normal 30-day notice to vacate, and I wouldn't pay anything, and he would return my deposit in full within 24 hours after the keys are returned. Or 3, I could continue to live there, but no rent would be owed until all safety issues were fixed and his stuff on the property removed. Okay, but what about the money he owes you? I like that though. He chose to go with option 2. On a side note, found out from my wife's mother about a year after we moved out, some of the shady upgrades he did to the house caused a house fire and burned down. This wasn't anything I did, but it felt so good to know that karma gets you in the end. Edit. Notice something in one of my comments that pointed out that Sam was doing upgrades. He didn't start doing these said upgrades until after I had submitted my response to the eviction. My response had to have everything I was showing in court, so his lawyer was shown all the safety issues and all those pictures. Basically, he wanted to fix everything right before court and then say that the house had no issues. What a little slime ball. Well, I'm glad you got his ass. But damn, man, that's a lot of money he owed you and you didn't get any of it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.